my favorite authors today, and it's been fun for me to have watched the entire span of her mystery publishing career. We've been doing this now long enough that that we can embrace, what is it, 8 books? 7?
8. Well, I just finished my 8th.
Anyway, this is Earlene Fowler, and I remember having lunch with her editor in New York right when her first book, Fool's Puzzle, was being published. And so it's really been fun for me to see how well you've done. Congratulations.
Well, thank you. Thanks.
This is, what, your 6th Agatha Award this year?
Fifth nomination.
Because you were up for Best First Novel?
Best First, and the only one that I wasn't up for Best Novel was Iris Chain, which I think happens to be one of my better books, so there you go. It doesn't...
Hers authors can't judge their own
Right.
work. For those of you who may be wondering, the Agatha Award is an award of the Malice Domestic Mystery Convention. It's a fan award, meaning that the final decision is made by mystery readers, not by mystery writers and so forth. So it's a readers award and therefore very special. And Malice Domestic is a convention that was started to encourage the traditional mystery.
Right.
They're
Amateur sleuth.
Right, and their credo is no explicit sex, gore, and violence, although I think probably as everything else has been modified over the decade, it's
yeah, I've seen
loosened up.
it change. I've seen it change, yeah.
But anyway, it's very nice. Have you taken home a teapot yet?
No, I haven't won it yet. I'm the Susan Lucci of the Agatha Award so far. It's a bit frustrating, I think, for my publisher, but, you know, I have fun with it. I think it's great. If I get 19 nominations, I'd be okay with that.
Well, I think it's very exciting. The Agatha, of course, is Agatha Christie,
Right.
for whom, you know, she's sort of a paradigm for this convention and the sort of books they like to celebrate. They've also branched out into historicals, which I think is great. And although you succeed in writing an excellent traditional or, you know, mystery series, non-traditionally, we'll get back to that. I do think the historical detective story has been the place where a lot of the puzzle solving in traditional crime novel has gone over the last decade, as people have been more interested in publishing thrillers or, you know, big novels. The historical mystery has picked up an awful lot of what used to be the sort of Christie book. And so the Agatha, the Malice Domestic, has now embracing historical mystery as part of under its umbrella.
I think people are ready for a gentler season. I think it has to do with the millennium or something. In the 90s, thrillers were really hot, and now it just seems like I see in people, I don't know, maybe the baby boomers are getting older. I don't know, we want a gentler mystery or something, or history is maybe meaning more to people as they get older. I think that might have something to do with it.
I like the gentler, but I also think it's the puzzle thing, which is something that you do very well. I think the real dedicated mystery reader still likes to solve a puzzle, still likes the challenge, and a thriller by its very nature is really a duel. And so the point of the thriller is really who's going to win and not who did it.
Right.
And it's a different focus. So I'm pleased, and I'm glad that you've had this much recognition, you know, from Malice and from its fans for the kind of book that you write. So let's go back to where you got started. You wrote some books, not books, but you wrote quite a few short stories over a span before you ever got to Fool's Puzzle.
Right. I not in the mystery field. I started writing in my late 20s. I took a creative writing class at a local junior college. That's how I got started. And I started writing short stories and started sending them out to little literary magazines that colleges produce. So they were literary short stories, very heavy on characterization. So anybody who reads my books sees that obviously characterization is a love for me. And did that for 10 years, never had any success in publishing. And I always kid that I couldn't even give it away because the whole thing with literary magazines is they don't pay you in anything but copies. But yet it's really prestigious to be able to be published by one of them. It can start a career for you. But I couldn't even give away my stories. But that was my learning time. I look back at that now, and that was when I was learning my craft. And I got in my late 30s, decided I wanted to try a novel, and then I wrote Fool's Puzzle. But because I love reading mysteries, it's always been my pleasure since I was a child to read mysteries. So.
Well, you've had one of those kind of lucky stories, which I got to hear last night at your book signing when Joanne Mapson showed up. But what actually happened to you was?
Well, I was taking this creative writing class at Orange Coast College in Orange County, California, where I live. And she was a sabbatical replacement teacher for a novel writing workshop. And I had finished my novel, and at that point said, gee, I probably should go and take a novel writing workshop and just see what they, you know, have to think about it. and turned in my first chapter, as is usual in one of those classes, and she read it and asked me to stay after class and said, how much of the novel do you have finished? And I told her I had all of it finished. And so she says, well, I would like to read it. Now, at this point, I was very naive. I had no idea that that was a really big deal for a teacher to do that. I was very thankful that she said, let me read it. And all I thought she was going to do was just read it and give me some critique on it. And I was excited because I always assumed from all the books that I had read, I've read a million how-to books, that your first novel never gets published. And that's how I wrote this book, with the idea that, okay, I know this is my training ground. This is not the book that's going to get published. So, you know, I'm just going to be free with it and do whatever I want. So she read it. After she got done with it, she said, I really think this is marketable. I'd like to send it to my agent. And again, being so naive and not knowing anything about the book industry, I didn't even know a writer till I met her. Never been to a book signing, never been to a convention, had never belonged to a writer's group. I said, oh, that's great, not understanding now what a special thing that is for a teacher to say, I'll recommend you to my agent. Her agent, who is now my agent, read it, took me on as a client, and then within a week I got a 3-book contract from Putnam Berkeley.
Boy,
So,
it's amazing that you weren't murdered by your writing class.
it was very hard to go back to the class and tell that. And people assume that it is an overnight success story, and I always have to emphasize that even though that did happen to me that quickly, I did put in my 10 years of writing beforehand, where I took many creative writing classes at night at different junior colleges in my area, and I just took the 18-week class and it was over and that was it. And that was how I went into this class, thinking that I was going to take this class. And so what I always like to tell new writers is, you know, always be working on your craft and always have whatever you're writing ready for someone to read, because you never know when that moment is going to happen. You could be in any class or any convention or whatever, and the person say, let me look at your stuff.
It's interesting that you now teach writing classes yourself. I know you've taught one, one for us, and you have an analogy you make between writing a novel and quilting.
Right. I actually have a whole hour-long talk that I give on it, that I give a lot to quilt guilds, but now I've started giving it to, actually the first time I ever gave it was to the literary women of Long Beach. And it's the whole talk about, I talk about how to make a quilt, and at the same time how similar that is to making writing a book, which I found, I really discovered that when I was finished with my 3rd book, Kansas Troubles, and I got to thinking about the steps. Because I've made a few quilts in my life. I'm not a very good quilter. Much better writer than I am a quilter, but I understand the whole process of making a quilt.
Well, it's nice that you know, having had a lucky break yourself with a writing class, and, you know, it does take talent to support luck, but without luck, talent can often go unrecognized. It's nice that you're putting it back by doing the same thing yourself.
Right. Well, I've always thought that there's 3 things that you need, really, to make it in the publishing world. You need talent, you need hard work, and you need luck. And the hard work, anybody can do that. And the talent and the luck, that's something that you just, you know, you don't know if you have the talent till you get out there and do the hard work, and the luck, that's sometimes just being in the right place at the right time. But if you get out there, that's some of the things I tell new writers too, you need to get out there. I was lucky in the fact that it happened in a creative writing classroom, but I did have in my mind, okay, when I'm done with this book and maybe I'll write another one, then I'll see about the marketing. I really gave myself that goal that I did want to get published, but I didn't want to think about publishing while I was writing the book. And that's something that worries me a little bit when I see people in writing classes now, that they get so worried about the publishing part of it when they're still learning their craft. And I considered it a real gift that I didn't even think about being published while I was writing that first book. Because sometimes it really worries you. You start thinking, I see so many of them, they come to me and they talk about, well, will this sell? Or should I even spend any time on this? And if I have to tell a person that, then it's not the story they should be telling.
No, if you're writing, you know, to meet market demand, you're really writing advertising copy more than you are writing fiction.
I try to tell them, write the book that's in your heart. That really, it sounds like a cliche, and I know it's been said a lot, but it really is true. And that's what I did with Fool's Puzzle.